So in 2017, I made a video on how to paint cars in iRacing. Now at the time, I was only a few months into iRacing. I only knew, the basics of painting, and it's been almost 3 years since I made that video. And so I thought I would remake the video with all the tips and tricks that I've learned over these past 2.5 years of painting cars and learning what it takes to painting cars. So this is going to be a remake of that video, improve on all the mistakes I made, and give you guys a better idea of what it takes to paint a car in iRacing. So let's get into it. And this is the car that we're going to be recreating. It's the Porsche 935 K3. It's the famous Apple Computers livery, and I personally love it. So we're going to recreate this on the new Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport, whatever it's called, in iRacing that just got released a few weeks ago. So one of the things that I like to do is to gather all the logos and reference material that I'm going to need before I recreate the paint scheme. If you're working on a commission for a race team or something like that, it still helps to have all the logos and all the things that you're going to need to put on the car before you start working, just so that you're working more efficiently and you know exactly everything that needs to go on the car instead of having to piece it together at the end. So I should say that this is a Photoshop-based tutorial. It's not to say that you couldn't work in GIMP or something else. It's just that I'm using Photoshop and it might be different from the program that you're using. You can definitely use those programs and get just as good of a paint scheme, but it might be a little bit different from what I'm working on here. So this is what it looks like when you open a basic template in iRacing. There's 3 different layers that are already there for us to look at, and there are different layers for different things, and they're really, really helpfully laid out. The most important one, paintable area. This is where you put your logos, your colors, your stripes, all that kind of thing. In here, there's a few different things that might help us. Car decal. Car decal is just basic things that iRacing suggests that we can use, but we don't have to use them. Things like the Michelin Pilot Challenge logos, and it just depends on what you're painting. In this case, when we're painting our Porsche, we won't be using these, but if you were painting a car and you wanted to have them on there, they're there for our use. But we can always modify and get rid of things, and I'll show you how to do that. Secondly is the pit box. It's pretty self-explanatory. In this case, it's the one color we want the pit box to be. In stock cars, it would be a 2-color thing, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Then there's car patterns. Now, car patterns is there's 20 or something patterns in here that are suggestions or things that we can use that iRacing's included. You don't have to use them, but they're there. There's a bunch of different kinds, and it's really cool. It's really good if you want to create something quick, or if you're just a beginner and you want to create something, but you're not quite sure what you want to create. These are really cool. There's a lot of cool things in here that you can use. You might be asking yourself, what's with the crazy colors? Well, the crazy colors help us select those colors and change them. If they were, all very similar, it would be difficult. But in this case, I can go and select the selection tool and click on the green, and then I can change the color of the roof of the car. Or if I want to, I can use select color range, and I can use the eyedropper tool and select it. And then that way I can select all the green on the car and paint it a specific color. So that's really cool, and that's why they use those. So those are car patterns. And then the base color. This is honestly just a base color that is behind it. If you know your car is going to be yellow, you can just use that and paint your car yellow. And then in here we have turn off before exporting TGA. These are things that won't end up in the final paint scheme, but are tools that help us while we're painting. The most important one is the wire tool. It shows us the contours of the car and where we can and cannot paint. Anything outside of the green, you can't paint, or nothing's going to show there. And that just shows you where things are going to be, where the fuel filler is going to be, where the vent on the side of the car is going to be, how the back of the bumper is going to look like, where the vents in the front of the bumper are going to look like, that kind of thing. Also in here, we have things like the mask, which is pretty self-explanatory. We have sponsor blocks, which iRacing includes just to kind of show you where you could put logos. It's not to say that's the only place, but that's where they're suggesting. I usually don't use that in my paint schemes. Number blocks is helpful sometimes, especially if you're painting a stock car and you want to paint something on the door and you don't want the numbers to cover it. You turn on the number blocks and it'll show you where you want to paint stuff. Car mandatory, this is stuff that we cannot paint. You can paint over it. You might see it in your Photoshop file, but when it exports and puts it in iRacing, iRacing is going to stamp things over it. It's just small little details that you probably wouldn't want to paint anyway, so that's just what the car mandatory thing is. I usually leave that on. So that's the basic turn off before exporting TGA. Finally, custom spec map. I'm not going to be covering that in this video. I'll cover it in another video, but that's basically where you would go if you want to make a car matte or shiny or chrome or anything like that. So that's kind of the basics. I can show you some tips and tricks on how to use these, but that's the basics of what an iRacing template looks like. So real quickly, I just wanted to show you a stock car and how it might differ from a road racing vehicle. Most of the differences are the paintable area is a little bit different. There's more things in here like color change logos. If you're painting your car black, that super logo, it's not going to show up on your paint scheme. So the color change logos is a layer in there that's not stamped automatically on the car, but it allows you to change the color. So if you have a black car, you can make that white and it'll show up a lot better. The only other major difference in here, other than the extra things within here that are all self-explanatory and labeled, is the number blocks are a lot larger. Obviously, since this is a stock car, the numbers are going to be huge on the side of the car. And on the roof, so it's a little bit different. The other thing is that there are number blocks that a lot of people might not notice right off the bat underneath the rear tail light and underneath the front headlight, and just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's the main differences between this case the Cayman GT4 and the Supra Xfinity car, but a road racing car and a stock car and how they might differ. So before we get started painting the car, there's a few things that I just wanted to show you guys real quick on a few tips and tricks on how to paint the car. One of the things that I wanted to show you was how to change the base color of the car. So we have the base color layer. You can either select the base color layer, go to Edit, Fill, and then either select a color, or in this case we're selecting white, and it paints the car white. Or what I prefer to do is double clicking on the layer next to the name. It'll bring up this layer style palette. You can go to color overlay, pick a color. In this case we're doing white, and it'll make the car white. And if you want to undo it or see what it looked like before, you can always click the eyeball next to the effects thing, but that way we can see it. Well, then you might think, well, when I turn on the layer that helps me with the wires, I can't see anything. The wire layer is completely blank because it's on a white background. Well, I learned that you can do the layer style thing to the wire layout as well, and this way we can change the color to something bright like pink or like green or like blue or whatever you want to do, and that way we can still see the wire layer, but we can also see the white behind it. You might also consider changing the opacity of the wire layer just so that it's a little bit easier to see what's behind it and it's not quite so intrusive. You can also do the same thing for the number blocks or sponsor blocks by changing the opacity down. So that's just a little quick tip in order to help you as you're working with the paint scheme. So let's get to painting this car. Okay, so now comes to the part where we actually paint the car, where we get into the nitty-gritty of painting the car. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the basics of how you might add color and a logo and that kind of thing, or create patterns. And then we're going to save it, see what it looks like on the car itself. And then I'm going to do a time lapse of the Apple car just so you can see an overhead view of the way that I work and create paint schemes. So first things first, we're going to show you how to add colors and things like that to the paint scheme. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're working with layers. Go to the bottom right hand corner and click layers. It'll allow you to work more efficiently. If things are on different layers, it just makes things so much easier to work on. And if you're just painting all the colors on one layer, it just makes things way more difficult. So make sure you're working with layers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the paintbrush tool, and we're going to, create some designs on the side of the car. Maybe some squiggles, maybe a big spirally thing on the hood, maybe some stripes on the top of the car, that kind of thing. Maybe some stripes continue onto the bumper. It just takes some time to realize which different parts of the car are. It's pretty obvious on this one. So that's that. So maybe I want to do a new layer and I want to have the whole bumper be a different color. I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool to create a selection. So you're just clicking around the item, and I want to be careful to select just the front bumper. If you hold space bar and then click, it'll allow you to move where you're zoomed in. I'm sorry if I'm using a lot of a lot of key commands. They are just a super efficient way of working. So if you want to learn a lot of key commands, that would really make you a lot quicker. So now we have the front bumper selected, and I'm going to go edit, fill. I'm on a new layer, and I want the bumper to be pink. I'll go with a cool, weird pink color. Obviously, pink is the same color that we made the wire layer, so it's going to be look a little funky. And maybe I want to use the car pattern. Maybe I want to find a different car pattern that has something cool to work with. Maybe I want this green swoop thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the magnetic lasso tool, and I'm going to go with a green swoop, and I'm going to hold shift, and it'll allow me to select more than one thing, and bam, I've got that selection. And now I'm going to get rid of the car pattern with the eyeball tool, create a new layer, and I'm going to fill that with pink color. Pink is selected. Bam, there you go. Now I have a weird pink swoop, but it's over top of the green, and I don't really like that it's over top of the green, so I'm going to grab the layer, select it, and move it below the green. Now that's a great reason why you want to work with layers. And maybe I want to have this blue here, so we go and we select this, and we select you, you, and you. You can also use edit, where is it? Or it'll select color range. It'll allow you to select all the blue, but we don't want to do that in this particular example. And we're going to create a new layer below the green layer, and we're going to fill it with a third color. Maybe we want to add, oopsie. What goes? We're going to add orange. And now we have a really cool paint scheme, but you know, it needs a little something else. So maybe we're sponsored by a company, or maybe we want to add our team logo. I'm going to add my team logo here. I'm going to do File, Place Embedded, navigate to my desktop. Oh, look, there's an HJ logo on my desktop. And I'm going to put that guy on the hood. Make sure I rasterize it and select the white background and get rid of that guy. What a beautiful HJ paint scheme we have here. So there you go. We've added some layers, we've added some color, we've added some logos. Now, how do I get this to look cool and be on my race car? Make sure you're unselecting the wire tool. And then we're going to do save as. And then we're going to navigate to where our iRacing folder is. Mine's in this PC documents. Go to paint and navigate to the folder of the car that we're painting currently, which is the Porsche 718 GT4. Now this is where we save it. So we're going to name it car, all undercaps, not undercaps, all undercase, car underscore. And then we have to find our customer ID. To find the customer ID, you go to the iRacing page here, go to account, my account, and when you click on that and log in, you'll get this page right here. Your customer ID is this number. So my customer ID is 268093. I'm going to place that here and save it as a Targa file, TGA, and click save. Then we're going to do 24 bits and compress, and it'll save it. Then we open up an iRacing session, and we hit Control R. Once you have a replay, to get a replay, just hop out on track. You got to make sure also that you have a guy in the seat of your car. If your driver is not in the seat of your car, when you hit Control R, it's just going to be a white paint scheme and it's not going to show up. So make sure you have a guy in your car, maybe do a few laps or something like that. So there it is. There's our beautiful, horrible mint pink green paint scheme. If you hit Control F12 and use the WASD, it'll allow you to move around the paint scheme, see what you're doing here. And you can use to zoom in and to zoom out. This is a horrible paint scheme. And I kind of like the way this looks. I think it looks pretty good. There's one or two things that I need to improve. So how do I improve it? Like, for example, I have noticed that this big thing is white and my door handle is white too, and I don't really like that. I want those to be both pink, so, or maybe I want them to be green or orange or something. So we're going to navigate back to our template, and I know, because I've worked with this car, for example, that the vent on the side of the door is this guy right here. So we're going to select it and create a new layer, and we're going to fill it with orange. Now, this is part of the tricky thing about painting in iRacing, is if I wanted this stripe to match up and continue onto this here vent, I'd have to do a lot of trial and error. And that's just part of the process of working with iRacing paints. I did a bunch of paint schemes for this car when it was first released, and there was a couple cars that had logos or something across that. So it's just a bunch of trial and error, and that's what separates like a okay painter from a great painter, is getting the logos to match up just right, and which portions of it are right. So that's difficult. And then, you know what? I want to make my door handle pink to match the rest of the car. So I'm going to select that and fill it with pink. Perfect. Is there anything else that we need to change? Well, I'm kind of noticing that the numbers are, if you see here on the back bumper, the number, you can only see the 4. So maybe I want to create some sort of, thing to display the numbers. This is where we got rid of the Michelin Pilot Challenge logos, but maybe you want to add something in there. And I'm going to make a block, and I'm going to fill it with yellow. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do the same thing. Fill it with yellow. Make sure you're working on the layer in the paintable area, not on your numbers block in the red layers. And finally, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to fill it with yellow. This paint scheme is horrible. All right, so now we're going to unselect wire, unselect number blocks, and we're going to save it as a TGA, and we're going to see what it looks like. So here it is. It's horrifying, but you get the basics of what it takes to paint a car. We've created shapes on the side of the car with a paintbrush tool and with a selection tool. We've made sure that we can see the numbers a little better. Yellow is probably not the best choice, but it's something. So there you go. That's the basics on how to paint a car, add a logo, do that kind of thing. So that gives you an idea of what it takes to paint a car, and it's going to take a lot of trial and error to figure out how you want the car to look, how things are going to line up, that type of thing. But that's just part of the challenge of painting the car in iRacing. So now I'm going to go ahead and create the Apple paint scheme and do a little time lapse so you can see what that looks like, and we'll come back at the end and see what it looks like. So there you have it. There's a time lapse of me painting the 718 GT4 in iRacing to look like the 1980 Porsche 935 by Kremer Racing in the Apple livery. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it at least give you a little bit idea of what I do to recreate these liveries. There's a few small things that I want to touch up on this, but overall I'm pretty pleased with the way that this came out. This is an iconic livery and I think it looks really great. So let's go take some pictures of it and upload it to Trading Paints, and yeah. So obviously the final step you're going to do is upload this to Trading Paints. Trading Paints is the website that hosts all of these paint schemes for people to use. I have paint schemes on Trading Paints. As you can see, there's one here on the front page that I did of the Club Sport GT4. Obviously, we're going to go up here to the right-hand corner, do upload, choose paint file to share. Mine is saved to my desktop. It's just the regular TGA that we've been using previously. Same thing, 24-bit compressed. And we're going to upload that. Make sure you upload it to the community. Make sure we choose the right car. Navigate down to Porsche. Give it a name and a description, obviously. Since we're doing, this one doesn't have a custom number, so we're not going to worry about it. So the next thing you want to do is upload pictures, and you really want to have good pictures of your car so people have a good idea of what it looks like. I've already gone ahead and done that. If you'd like to know more about taking pictures in iRacing, you can use my tutorial on how to use JRT if you'd like, or there are other videos online that other people have created on how to create good pictures. But you really want to have a good photograph of your car so people know exactly what it looks like. So I've already done that, so I'm going to navigate to that and upload those. The first one you upload, by the way, is the one that shows as the thumbnail. So there we go. I have all 4 of my photos uploaded so people have a good idea of what the paint scheme looks like. I make sure to have a really bright close-up picture that's the thumbnail so people really have a quick glance at it and they know exactly what it is. And then the rest of the information is optional. You don't need to do this. This is more for stock car stuff if you want a specific number font suggested or specific rim color or whatever. Make sure you set this to public if you want everyone to use it, unless you don't want everyone to use it, and then you can do it to unlisted or approval. And then this is just basically some community settings. Then all you do is click add paint to showroom and it'll upload, and woohoo! There you go, the Apple 935 recreation that I made for the 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport in iRacing. If you'd like to race this paint scheme, I'll link it down in the description. I hope this tutorial helped you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I hope that this was a better video than the one that I created 3 years ago. Be in the lookout for the future. I'll try to make one for more advanced techniques like using spec maps and custom numbers. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and happy painting, as Bob Ross would say. All right, peace.